Hello darling, welcome back to my channel. If you're new to this channel, I'm IJ Gold. Well, for returning subscribers, thank you very much. If you're yet to subscribe, what are you waiting for? Smash that sub button. Today, we'll be looking at the introductory part of our proposal. For those of you who want to write your research proposal, this is for you. And of course, if you're still hoping to write one, you can learn so much from this particular video. Don't go away. Right, good stuff. Okay, so we want to write a research proposal. First off, for some of you, you may be writing this as one of the requirements for your module, and that most likely will be a research method module of its own, which will lead you to do a dissertation at a master's level. For most of you, perhaps it could just be writing a proposal to get admission into a university for a PhD. Either way, it's good to know what the content or elements that are required for a research proposal. And that's what we're going to cover. Hopefully at the end of this particular session, you will have a good knowledge of how to write a research proposal, especially the introduction. We'll have subsequent, of course, videos where we'll talk about other elements or parts and sections of the research proposal. Right, so okay, so how do you choose your research topic? The research topic, first of all, is really important. It could change when you get on with the proper, the research itself. But a good place to start is to consider what you're interested in. The field and subject matter within your field is really important. So take, for example, if you're interested in the working patterns of women or work-life balance within HR, whatever you're interested in is a good place to start. But don't stop there. Look at your interest. How visible is it for you to achieve this particular research within the time frame you've got? For master's students, you've got about 3 to 4 months maximum. For PhDs, if you're doing it part-time, it will be about 6 years. If you're doing it full-time, about 3 years and a year writing up period. But overall, you want to choose something that is achievable, a field that you can really research on within that time. Another important factor is relevance. What's the aim? What's the potential outcome or the significance of that research? One question that really guides me is the question, so what? Okay, so you want to talk about this. You want to research about why a particular phenomenon exists, for example. Why is that important? Why do we need to know about that? What's the rationale behind you studying a particular topic? And then you want to be specific. You want your topic to also satisfy the research or project requirements. Again, it depends on what you are researching on and what the particular proposal is aimed at. Obviously, if you're doing a module, there will be certain elements within the rubric that you need to follow. If you are doing a research proposal for a PhD, obviously the elements that be required would potentially be different. And if you're doing a paid project, maybe you're required to write a research proposal for a PhD that is being sponsored, maybe a studentship. You need to know what there will most likely be a topic already. You need to know what the focus is. And in subsequent videos, I will zoom more or talk more about those particular proposals. Okay, there are certain topics to avoid. You don't want to focus too much on really broad topics that obviously you can't completely study within a singular time frame. So for example, rather than looking at human resource management in UK industries, that is massive. You may decide to look at the management strategy the reward management strategy of a particular company. That is a little more specific than the first. Okay. Right, so overall, you want to avoid topics that are too broad or too big, and topics that are too trivial that you can't really say, okay, you've contributed to knowledge, for example. You also want to avoid topics that are too technical, you're not too knowledgeable about it, or it's outside your field entirely. Obviously, you don't want to do something that's unethical. At a master's level within the UK, I would suggest that you seek to collect data from adults if you can. Obviously, different fields may have different requirements and it depends on what you're studying. But if you're in a business school, it's more likely that you can take or collect data from employees who are most likely adults. But you need to follow the process. Most universities will have you send in an ethics form, which a supervisor may have to, look through and approve before you carry that, collect data before you carry on with your research. But at this stage, your topic in itself should not be unethical. So focus on something that is within the remits of ethical practices. Another issue you should bear in mind is when choosing your topic, you don't want to choose a topic that is dependent on the completion of another topic or project and one that you can't get resources, be they materials or humans, for example. So just be aware of that as well. If you're not clear on what area you want to research on, there are some exercises you could do. The first and the best, perhaps, is actually reading. For some people, you have maybe this concern with reading or you have issues starting your writing, the best way to start is to start, for example. No pun intended, but it's just what it is. So read a lot of articles within your field, and then you can do the mind mapping I spoke of in the previous video. Basically, pick up a sheet of paper, right in the middle of that paper, just draw a circle, and then have your fields. For example, if you're in supply chain or you're doing an accounting course, you can have that within that sheet, that circle, and then start drawing what are the different branches of accounting or areas that you want to focus on, and try to, if you carry on like that, you could also look at subtopics within the different subject area, and hopefully you'll be able to draw down to a more specific or smaller area you can focus on for your research. And you can do a relevance tree as well. Why is this topic important? Why should we be talking about it? Why should we even research on this phenomenon or concept? There are so many different strategies that you could also consider. You may decide to just focus on something that is really burning in your heart, the topic you have a burning desire for, or you could do a replication of an existing study. Now, with replicating a study, just be aware that you know there there will be an existing study, obviously. So it's in a way it's really good because you're kind of standing on the giant's shoulder or the shoulder of giants, like they say. But does that really suit your purposes? Um, However, it's really good because you already have something to draw from, a piece to draw from. You could potentially change the context as well. Maybe it's a research that was done in India, you could do one in the UK using the same methodology, for example, to see whether you would get the same results. You could also consider one that's been given by your tutor. Maybe some existing research areas within your business school is worth considering. But most importantly, you need to consider a topic that's important. It could be one that will deal with a practical problem. Most of you who will go on to do consultancy research or action research, this particularly will be useful for you. Another one is to use a very convenient access strategy. Maybe you've worked in a particular company before and you think you can easily get data within that industry. That could be a fine strategy to take on. And you could also consider one that promotes your career goals. But bear in mind that if you're probably working in a company and you're trying to research on that particular company, whatever it is you have as a criteria, within your company, maybe they want uh, to know A, B, C, D about the company, and you decide to take that project on, just bear in mind that your university or for your module, you'll be graded against a different criteria most likely. So if you're going to submit this kind of research as as an academic piece of work, you need to ensure that you are meeting the criteria as stated in your rubric, or your indicative content, your marking criteria. Bear that in mind. But obviously it will be useful if you have knowledge. Some of you may want to take on this strategy because maybe if you know more about the company you're going to work in the future, maybe that's where you want to work in the future, it may be quite useful as an exercise now. But still, don't forget, it's an academic piece of work. All right, so let's assume that we've got a topic. Now we want to start off with writing an introduction. In fact, in the UK, for you to write any report, any essay whatsoever, you need to have your introduction, main body, and your conclusion. And every introduction should have some form of signposting where you're telling us the scope of that particular piece of work. So you can start off really nicely what the research paper focuses on. Your particular chapter is going to cover your research aim, research question, background of the study, and what have you. Now, for your proposal, you don't necessarily have to write all of these different sections and chapters. It's when you're doing your dissertation that you may need to use that particular structure. And obviously, different universities will have different structures and formats, so please do bear that in mind as well. Okay, so you need to have your research aim, which is a brief summary of what the topic is all about. I'll zoom in a bit more in subsequent slides. Now, for the background of the study, some universities may require you to discuss background of the study by incorporating the rationale for doing that study or the significance of the study, and obviously having situating your study within a context, as it were. So whatever is required again for your module, please bear that in mind. But for background of the study, generally you want to include relevant information. It's not a good time to give a plethora of definitions. It's not a good time to discuss the history of a company. It's a time, just imagine yourself if you were in an elevator, right? And you had Mark Zuckerberg with you for 3 minutes and you want to tell him something within 3 minutes. What would you want to tell him? Or, I don't know, maybe Elon Musk or any one of these business tycoons, you want to talk to them about something, 3 minutes or 1 minute, what's that thing you would want to say? Obviously, you want to say something that is important. Maybe you want to get a job working for Google, Tesla, or any of these multinational corporations, Tesco, whichever. You would want to say something that will get you through the door. So imagine your background of the study. Your examiner is going to read this chapter 1 really well, so you want to say something that is quite catchy and important. Okay, so let's imagine that we're researching, our topic is to what extent has remote working impacted the work-life balance of female bankers in the UK, or IT professionals, whichever area. Here, maybe there are some rich data out there that talks about how, maybe let's look at nurses, for example, how stressed out they are, the levels of burnout. Obviously, we can see that that is a problem, and we're trying to find a practical solution that will contribute to solving that problem. I know this is fancy, research is really sweet and all, but your research may not necessarily solve the problem of the world, but that's the beauty of it, is one research at a time. So that particular area that you can focus on will be crucial. So here you could discuss, give us a context. Okay, talking about nurses. This is what the research has said previously. Just punch lines and tell us why this is absolutely important. Now, if you're trying to find out the rationale for your study, a good place to look at is the existing journals. In fact, from existing journals, you will see or have a sense of how to structure your titles as well. So the relevance of your study, go to the journal article, scroll all the way down, you will find an area about future research, areas for future investigation. It's a good place to take that from. Okay, so your research aim is a summary of the purpose of your study. You may not need to have a heading, but again, it depends. If that's required in your rubric, please follow the instructions as stated there. But you could basically write this as a paragraph and clearly capture the core elements of your research by briefly stating what your method is, what context you're looking at, and it's not a time for you to start talking about the company more broadly. For example, you don't need to discuss a company's business aims, strategy, or goals. It's a time to tell us the goal of your own research. So it could sound something like this. The aim of this qualitative study is to investigate the motivational strategy used by ABC company to promote employee retention. Okay. So we're just focusing on this company, and we're going to do a qualitative study. It captures what the core of your research is all about, and it's really good for your examiner or your reader to know what it is from the beginning. Okay. Right. So your research question, you could just phrase it as a question drawing from your research title. It should be really clear and should be reflective of what your research aim is. All right. You could take an example from the broken vase method. You don't want something that is overly big, like I said before, or something that is so tiny that's not really as specific, or something that's too sharp or sensitive. It just wants to be right. Just going back to the example we had. So if I were to have that particular research aim as a question, I'll be asking, to what extent has flexible working impacted the work-life balance of female bankers or female nurses in the UK? This hypothetical research I had talked about earlier, so just bear that in mind as well. Next, you want to look at your research objectives. Remember we talked about the research aim that was written in paragraphs or in a paragraph. For the research objective, you could actually write this, using a bullet point style. Now, normally we don't encourage you to use bullet points when writing a report or an essay. You want to write in paragraphs, but for the purposes of a research objective, you can actually outline them or list them out. And there are key terms to use, for example, to examine, to explore, to evaluate, to assess, to identify, to investigate. These kinds of terms should be used to start off whatever it is your aims are. Okay, they should be really clear, connect them to your research question or the topic you're investigating. And I would say for a dissertation, at master's level, for example, you may want to use about 2 to 4. You don't want to exceed that, because doing 6 or 10 research questions and research objective, for example, is quite ambitious given the time frame that you've got. Okay, and of course consider SMART objectives. You want to ensure that your objectives are achievable within the limited time that you've got as well. Okay, these are useful resources and links for you. So Grammarly.com, Squire Resourceful, help you to check those punctuations to do your proofreading. Manchester Phrase Bank, really useful when you want to look at certain research phrases you can use, especially for writing critically. And then Let's Tutor, Scale, great resources to also consider for grammar. And of course, my YouTube channel, we're going to be talking about this. And there we have it. Thank you very much. Yay, we made it to the end of class. Thank you very much. Any questions, please send a DM 9 Yards of Art on Instagram, or just leave your comments in the section below. Thank you, and subscribe. Bye.
Hello, learners, you made it! Well done, baby! Okay, so I hope at this point you can now write your own aim, research objective, background of the study, and what have you. Well done. Well, up next will be our literature review, methodology, and others. So, if you haven't subscribed, please do so you miss nothing. And like the video if you like it. It will help you to recommend this to other students or learners who want to know more. Remember, learning is continuous, and for us, we start from excellence. Okie doke, I'll see you in the comment section. Drop those questions, comments, constructive ones. And if you want to grab me on Instagram, you can get me at 9 yards or that. Just into my DM. All right. Okay, you'll see me in my next video. Thank you very much. Have a beautiful day.